I feel like every renowned philosopher has once said something along the lines of, time is our most valuable resource, so never take it for granted, and they could not be more right. So I bet that if each of us could have a few additional hours every single day, we would take it in a heartbeat. So let's do just that for you with these 5 time-saving hacks. My name is Jun Yu. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. Just like you, my life is busy. I have my studies, my business, content creation, and I love doing every single one of those. And these 5 time-saving hacks have been a big part of my success. So if you learned anything, I hope that you like the video. I hope that you leave your thoughts in the comments, and of course, subscribe. With that being said, relax, sit back, and enjoy the video. Hack number 1, journaling. And I know that this one isn't necessarily as intuitive as some of the others will be, but nonetheless, I believe it's so important for me to start with this one. If you were to take the last 30 days of your life and take an honest look at it, I bet what you would find is that you spent a lot of it doing things that were not important to you, right? Whether that was because of FOMO or peer pressure, simply because you lacked the awareness of what it was that you were doing, you were distracted. And what do we know about our society today? There's a ton of distractions, especially with our phones nowadays. So if you leave it up to society, it will continue to distract you. And unfortunately, I believe a lot of people struggle with this. By the time that they wake up to the reality that they never made progress towards their goals, they feel that it's a little bit too late. And I don't want that to be you. So start journaling. It'll do 2 things for you. Number 1, allows you to outline your goals, right? Define what it is that you actually want. And number 2, allows you to reflect. So look at where you were, where you aren't now, so that you're able to get to where you want to be. So it's important to identify your strengths so you can continue building on that. It's important to identify weaknesses so you can continue to improve upon them, right? It's only when you can start journaling and establish that mental clarity and direction are you able to have boundaries, right? I used to be the person that said yes to everything, thinking that it was actually doing a lot of good for me. But I realized behind every no is a deeper yes to doing the things that you actually want. So never forget that, but you're not able to understand what it is that you want if you don't do the journaling. Start journaling today and do it on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be extensive. It just can be 5 minutes when you're first starting out, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but it makes a world's difference. So please, please, please start journaling. Hack number 2, peak productivity window. For the longest time, I used to not be intentional with when I was doing my most demanding tasks. So usually as a student, that means studying for an upcoming exam or working on a project. And early on, I would do a lot of this with my biomedical engineering friends, but because of how busy our schedules were and how nobody wanted to wake up super early in the morning, we decided to work late into the night. Over the course of several months doing this, I recognized that the same individuals were leading each of those sessions, right? These were the individuals that were the most focused, most alert, were able to work on the most challenging problems for the longest time and still be able to explain it to the rest of us. I certainly wasn't one of those individuals leading the sessions. So why? Why is it the case that my friends were able to day in and day out be the most productive within those sessions? Well, I've learned that everyone has natural fluctuations of energy, but it's unique to you. So my friends were most focused from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Me, on the other hand, I'm most focused from about a 90-minute to a 3-hour block starting at 6 a.m. But you, watching this, you might be most productive at 2 p.m. after you had lunch. You see, it's not necessarily important for when it is. You just have to be aware of it so you can protect it. And if you're able to have a focused bout when your energy levels are high, man, can you get a lot of work done within a 90-minute, 3-hour bout. I bet right now you are underappreciating how much work you can get done. And so over the course of the day, you're going to have distractions that are out of your control. But as long as you can prioritize that peak productivity window while leveraging it for your most demanding tasks, you can ensure on a consistent basis that you are pushing the needle in the right direction. It's so imperative to identify it. And so if you are unfamiliar with what your peak productivity window is, for just about 2 weeks, I would suggest you look at both internal factors and external factors, right? Internal factors are your sleep, when you eat your meals. And so that would obviously have a influence on your energy levels. And then number 2, the external factors. These are things that are out of your control, right? So if you have a job from 9 to 5, you're probably not gonna have your peak productivity window within that for other work. And if you are going to the gym at 7 to 9 p.m. That's probably also not going to be your peak productivity window. So you make a list of those and see how it affects both your energy levels and your focus, and identify where you can allocate for your peak productivity window. I bet once you start doing this is one of those tips that after you practice it and after you apply it, you'll find very, very quick success. Number 3, specific scheduling. I know that this is one of the more intuitive ones, but perhaps you're thinking about, what does he mean by specific? Well, I believe that although scheduling is something that is a cliche or something that everyone talks about, that people don't actually understand the power behind it. And so in this segment, I'll be talking about a specific concept called Parkinson's Law. And this law states that work naturally tends to expand to fill the time that was allocated for its completion. Now, that means that if you are not providing any type of structure, any type of deadline, you are not able to actually get the work done in an efficient manner. So what I usually see is that students will say something along the lines of, well, I know that I have my exam next week. I should probably start studying soon and then be prepared for that exam. By the time they get to the exam, either they are incredibly tired because they didn't space it out properly, or they didn't feel prepared, right? Because they didn't actually know when to do the specific studying, right? And so studying and every other task that you have for yourself on a daily basis can actually be done in a more efficient way if you specifically schedule the time to allocate for it. And in doing so, you will put that pressure in your mind subconsciously, not in an unhealthy way, but you know that you need to get this done. And so absolutely, you should schedule enough time for each of your tasks, and you'll get better at doing this the more you practice it, because you'll be more familiar with how each individual task takes up your time. But challenge yourself, right? So have a limited time that you're going to allocate for it. And so for my studying, when I say that peak productivity window that I was just talking about, it is a 90-minute to a maximum of 3 hours. I know that I have to get that work done within that time frame. And I'm telling you, 99% of the time, I am getting the work done within that time frame. So give it a try. Hack number 4, have a learning system. And this is probably my favorite on the list and will probably be my longest explanation, simply because academics mean a lot to me, and I know that it is a big stress point for many of you. So if I could push you guys in the right direction at all, whenever I can, however I can, I'm happy to do it. So what's my biggest gripe or frustration? Well, it's the fact that throughout our schooling, we're always told what to learn versus how to learn it. And because of this, many of us fall into the numbers game trap, which is the belief that the more hours we spend studying, the better our grades will be. This may be a linear relationship in primary school, perhaps in secondary school, but I still think that's pushing it, but definitely not the case in college, right? Why? Well, you'll have more demanding classes and more of them simultaneously, so it's not feasible for you to just continue expanding the number of hours you're studying, especially if you want a good quality of life, right? If you want to have a social life, if you want to have hobbies or side hustles, whatever is of interest for you, it's important that you're not spending your whole life studying. So there must be a better approach, and I can assure you there is. The better approach is to utilize techniques that consider higher levels of learning. So the concepts that I'm going to be talking about within this segment are going to be a lot more general, but I'd be happy to make a video regarding the specifics if you guys will like that. But I'm going to be giving a pretty thorough explanation here anyways. So when I'm talking about higher levels of learning, I am referring to Bloom's taxonomy. And this is actually first introduced to me by my middle school social studies teacher, who I absolutely adore and became a good mentor of mine. And he would always utilize this model to frame my thinking when it came to more difficult concepts for me to learn, especially in my APs several years down the line. And basically, the model shows that the lower levels of learning, the lower levels of mastery, right, are remembering and understanding. Remembering is a little bit intuitive. I hope that we all know not to just rotely memorize a bulk of what we're trying to learn. But actually, maybe we don't, because a lot of us still struggle with that. But number 2, even understanding it doesn't mean that information is of any value to you, right? Because you're not able to actually apply it or analyze it or evaluate it or create new knowledge from it. Those are the highest levels of learning, and it's imperative that our encoding practices, our retrieval practices are all considering those higher levels of learning. Now, that was a more general explanation, but I know that you guys want practical takeaways. So if we're talking about our revision techniques, because I think that's where a lot of us struggle, consider active recall applications such as blurting method, Feynman technique, along with practice tests. Those are the 3 favorites of mine because they naturally require you to do those higher levels of learning. They naturally require you to create groups and create linkages with relationships, usually cause and effect relationships, to help you better recall that information. So as you are actively pulling that information out of your brain while doing the blurting method, so on that piece of paper, or the Feynman technique as you practice explaining the concepts to somebody at a much lower level than you, or in your practice test, you are forcing yourself to do those higher levels. You are forcing yourself to create those groups and those relationships. And in turn, it will consolidate the memory, but also allow you to deepen your comprehension and also allow you to have better retention too. And so I'll close off my explanation there, but I would urge you, if you've never heard of active recall before, to start with those 3 applications and look at the Bloom's taxonomy and utilize that as a framework, as a way of considering those problems that you're facing, or those new concepts or those new pieces of information that you're learning, and try and do those higher levels of learning. You might think that they're too difficult to do, but don't run away from that difficulty. I promise you that investment early on is so worth it because it saves you so much time down the line. And also consider the fact that information builds. I know I just said that I would cut this, but information builds, right? And it's important that you're able to retain knowledge past just your exams, right? So when you are considering how to learn properly, you're not just thinking about being efficient for the exam upcoming, but you're thinking about being efficient for exams 2, 3, 4 years down the line while you're in university or post-grad, right? I hope that you consider the fact that there is a better learning system to try and save yourself a lot of time in the long run. Hack number 5, no social media before 10 a.m. But I'm gonna take this a step further and say, do not put your phone in the same room that you're going to bed in, or at the very least, don't allow yourself to have access to it in bed. Because what is the first thing that we tend to do? We wake up, we open up TikTok, we open up Instagram, and we start scrolling that endless feed, and it feels good in the moment. We don't want to get up. Now, the obvious benefit to this is the fact that you'll be able to get up out of bed quicker, right? You don't have that distraction, and so you're saving yourself time, a good amount of time, by not having that temptation right first thing in the morning. But more than that, the consequences, the ramifications of consuming that type of content early on has on you is severe, and it's something for you to consider as the day progresses, right? What do I mean by this? Well, if you are starting off your day consuming content, consuming the ideas and thoughts of random people on your Explore pages or your For You pages, much of that tending to be a little bit toxic or negative because social media tends to amplify some of that content, and it usually has better traction. It's clouding your judgment. It's clouding what is important to you. It's clouding your ability for discernment. It's clouding any type of energy that you might have had to start the day. And also, you have to consider that putting information into your brain is taxing. It requires energy, right? So even if you don't realize it, you are spending energy mindlessly scrolling, consuming the content of other people. It's not good. Don't do it. Just stop. Don't do that. Don't do that. Rather, do the journaling. Do a morning routine. Have something for yourself that is established for you, done by you, to put yourself in the best situation to succeed. And after 10 a.m., go ahead and use your phone. What you'll find is that the temptation is a lot less, right? When you're able to start your day on the right foot, the better momentum you have and the less distractions are actually making an impact on you or influencing you. With that being said, that were the 5 time-saving hacks that have completely transformed how I approach my day-to-day life. If you've learned anything within this video, please remember to like, leave your thoughts in the comments, and of course, subscribe. I'll see you at the top.